Okay, what's happening? Today we are going to be doing lab exercise 9, working with Excel. It's a mixed bag of some things, sorting, filtering, if function, count if function, and then some more interesting applications of all that at the end. So we'll introduce two new functions, if and COUNTIF. We'll get some cases for that. So if just looks at a particular cell and says, hey, does this value fall into a certain range? If it does, you can set consequences for what the cell output is if it's true, and you can also set consequences for what happens if it's not. In the COUNTIF, you can apply that if function essentially to a range of cells. So you can count how many cells have values that match your criteria. Okay, so anyway, I already have this file, Upper Midwest sales data, right? Upper Midwest sales. I have that Excel file already open here. You probably want to get it yourself. So, starts off, there's just one worksheet, single worksheet with subset of state data from the US sales data file. So, back what we did, lab exercise 7, I believe, we had all that sales data from different states here. This is just upper Midwest. So, we got Iowa, Michigan, some other states if you scroll down through. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to sort the data by row ID instead of by states. So to get the sorting process going, we're going to first click up here in A1. So we click in the top row, and then we're going to do custom sort because we're going to do that. Okay. And so first thing we're going to do is sort by row ID. Dun, dun, dun. So you get into that sort by drop down menu and click that. Okay. Once we're done with that, we also want to we also want to sort by order ID. So we're going to do that as well. So we add another level and then click order ID, dun, 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 and then we're done. So we can do OK and boom. So now we've sorted it. So it's sorted primarily by order ID. And if there were any weirdness where there were multiple row IDs with the same number, which shouldn't happen, but in case it did, then we could see that and there would be multiple order IDs, different ones, and it would be sorted by those. Okay. So anyway, that's done. So let's move on to the next thing. So we're going to use some filtering to extract subsets of the data. So for starting off, we just want to look at the orders from Jackson and Lansing in the state of Michigan. Okay. So first of all, to do that, if we knew that there was only a Jackson in, Michigan, not any other states, we could do that. Technically, what we should do is first apply the filter to the state to just get Michigan and then apply to the city. But I'm just going to jump ahead and do the city. So we'll do sort and filter, and we'll do filter. Dun, dun, dun. There's a drop-down menu here. We click the top one that says select all. That removes all the options. These are just all the different cities that appear in our data. So we're going to click the check boxes for Jackson and click the one for Lansing, and boom, we're done. And we can eyeball it and say, yeah, okay, they're all in Michigan. So if there's anything weird about that, where there was like a Jackson in Iowa, for example, then we could catch that. Okay. Now, let's take all of this. We're going to create a new worksheet and call it Jackson and Lansing. Okay, so click in the new tab here. We're going to call it Jackson and Lansing. Okay, we're going to go back to our old worksheet. We're going to select all the rows. Make sure you get the header row as well. Okay, we're going to get that. And we'll copy it into the new worksheet. Boom. And then we are going to remove the filter. So just click on filter and boom, it all goes away. Okay, so let's go to our Jackson and Lansing sheet. Now we've cleaned up our old data, so that's fine. First thing we're going to do is some if tests. So I'm going to stretch out these rows, so these columns, I mean, so it looks a little better. First thing we're going to do is a simple example about the if function. So in cell Z2, we're going to write the formula if year at C2 equals 2020, true, false. Okay, so this first thing in quotes, that's the string that's going to appear in the cell if the test is true. So if in fact the year of the date in cell C2 is 2020. So let's find C2. Look, the year is 2023. So it should be false, right? So if it were true, it would display true. If it were false, display false. So let's go ahead and type that in. Z2 says equals if year at C2 equals 2020, whoop, true. So that's the value if true. And then the second is the value if false, and close out the parentheses. And it's false, right? As you know, it's 2023. Okay. So that's just a quick quick demo of how the if function works. We're going to do some other examples in a moment. So in cell V2, we're going to write this function. If year at C2 equals 2020, put the value from R2, otherwise put 0. So what we're doing here is we check if the date in cell C2, the year is 2023. If it is, we show the sales from R2. Otherwise, we show 0. So this is a way to get a total for all the sales from 2020, right? This is another way to do it. So equals if year at C2 equals 2020, R2, otherwise 0. Okay. And then we can autofill that all the way down, and we can check out some of the cases here. Okay, look, here's an 11.7 here. Was the year 2020? Yes, it was. These four here, was the year 2020? Oh, look at that. There's some 2020s there. Okay. And so if we add up the total at the end, like the instructions say, put here in U49, put total, and V49 equals the sum of V2 to V47. Okay. Ta-da, we get our total. So that's all of the total there from 2020. Okay. Another thing you could do with the if function is text matching, right? So not just numeric values, you can just do text matching. If you do that, you need the text to be enclosed in quotes. So there's an example just below. We're going to find all the sales from all the rows where the category, which is in column O, is furniture. Okay. So in W2, we're going to write equals if O2 equals furniture, right? And so since it's a string like that, we put it in quotes. The value, if true, we'll do the value from R2, which is sales. Otherwise, we'll put in 0, right? So every entry in column W is going to have a number, if it, a non-zero number, if it was furniture. Otherwise, it'll have a 0. And so we can add up all those to get our furniture sales. All right, so once again, do autofill, scroll that all the way down, and do the sum. Once again, W2 to W47. And that's our number for total furniture sales in Lansing and Jackson. Okay. Another one, compound logic. So with the if function, there are various ways to do multiple logical tests. So in general, Excel has functions called and or that will allow you to do combinations of tests. But sometimes what's easier to do is just to have an if function nested within another if function, right? So you can say if something is true, and then in the true part, you can actually display not just a number or some text, but actually the result of another if function. But we're going to do this one here a little differently. So what we want to do is find all the sales where the subcategory is phones. Subcategory here is column P, and you can see here there are some phones. There's a phone entry. There's a phone entry there. There's another one up above. And the value of the sales is at least 100. Okay, so in cell X2, we're going to type this out and say equals if, and here we have an and function. So the and function will include two elements. And if both of those are true, then that and function will result in true. If either one is false, then the and function will resolve to false. So our first one is P2 equals phones. And the second one is R2 is greater than or equal to 100. Okay, so that's our and function. If both of those conditions are true, then, it'll resolve to true. And here the value for true will be the sales. Otherwise, it will be a 0. All right, so just like our other columns where we displayed a result if the if function was true, here we're going to have an and function. If that comes out to true, we're going to display the sales amount. Otherwise, we're going to display 0. All right. And so once again with this, we can scroll all the way down. Let's grab our few here, see if they make sense. Here, we have a 299. There's phones. Clearly, the sales is greater than 100. Here we have another one for phones. Value of sales in R here is greater than 100. Once again, phones greater than 100. Okay, so if we wanted to, we could sum up all those, which the exercise says to do, so I guess we do want to do it. So X2 to X47. And these are the sums of all the orders where they were for phones and the amount was greater than 200. Okay, so if functions basically let you do some kind of light database type stuff. Is, running a COUNTIF on a column is often similar to running a kind of query in a database. So similar functions there. All right. And we're almost done, actually. So we just got to do the COUNTIF function and a little stuff related to that. So first thing we're going to do, use the COUNTIF function to find out how many cells in a range meet specified criteria. Okay, so when you write a COUNTIF function, first you start with a cell range and then the matching criteria within quotes. All right, so for example, suppose we wanted to do this. Suppose we wanted to count the purchases above $100 in the cell range R2 to R47, right? So we looked at this column and said, hey, how many of these are above $100? Well, we can eyeball that. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Looks like 15 unless I made a horrible mistake. All right, so somewhere off to the side here, we can do a test on that, see how that works. So we'll do equals COUNTIF R2 to R47, and inside quotes, we put this logical test greater than 100. 14, did I add something wrong? Did I miss one? Let me count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Oh, that's what I did. 12, 13, 14. Yeah, okay. I missed one. Well, that happens. That's why we go back and double check. Okay. Anyway, similarly, if we wanted to count the purchases, which are from the not from furniture in the cell range O2 to O47, right? So all these things that are not furniture, right? We have to just count from there and down below. If we wanted to count those, and we see there's a few furnitures there, we would do not equal to furniture. So in Excel, the symbol for not equals is basically a less than greater than, so it looks like a diamond. Okay, so if we wanted to count all the ones that are not furniture, which is really going to be most of them, we could do equals, COUNTIF, O2 to O47, and our logical test is do not equal furniture. Furniture, make sure you spell that right or things will not calculate correctly. Okay, 39. We can also see there are 46 elements here, right? So it starts at 2, goes down to 47. So we could do the opposite of that. If there are 39 things that aren't furniture and there are 46 total, then there should be 7 that are furniture. So if we just do equals furniture, should get 7. Okay, cool. All right, so we're going to make a new worksheet and we're going to go back to our original data. We're going to copy all the rows where the state is Michigan. All right, so first we're going to make a new worksheet, call it Michigan. Dun, dun, dun. And then we're going to go back to our orders. Since we don't have the filter here anymore, we don't have messed with that. But click up somewhere in the top row and do filter. And we are going to apply a filter for the state of Michigan. All right, so unclick everything and then just select Michigan. Boom, we get that. And we'll go grab all the rows, including the top rows. We'll get a couple hundred entries here. And we're going to paste all that into the new one. Boom. And if you wanted to keep the old worksheet clean, of course, you could undo the filter, but we don't really have to do anything with that at this point. So I don't know. I'll do it, but I'm not going to check if you did. All right, we'll get rid of that filter. All right, great. Okay, so here's Michigan, right? So we're going to find the following things. COUNTIF function to find the number of line items not from the city of Detroit. All right, well, city's over here, starts at J2, goes down to J256. Okay, so let's make some text over here in the side. Number of line items not from the city of Detroit, Michigan. Okay, so we're going to do a COUNTIF. So equals COUNTIF, and our range will be, we'll use city. So starting from J2 to J256, right? That's going to capture that whole thing. And the criteria, not Detroit. Okay. And boom, 140. Wow, a lot of that stuff is from Detroit. Okay. Second one, number of line items with sales greater than 200. Okay, so number of line items with sales greater than $200. Okay, so once again, we're going to do a COUNTIF, and our range where sales is in column R, so R2 to R256, and the criteria will be greater than 200. Okay, let's count that. Boom, we get 20. There aren't very many. Let's do an eyeball of that and see. Yeah, that looks credible. There's one there, couple there, couple there. All right, we could count them all up, but we're going to give this the benefit of the doubt that it's doing it correctly. All right, last one, the number of line items in the order CA 2015112452. Okay. And let's grab that text just to make sure we get it precisely correct. Okay. So down here, we're going to put equals COUNTIF. Order is in column B. So we'll do B2 to B256, and the criteria will be equals that, right? So this will give us all the orders, all the line items where the order was CA 2015112452, and we get 5. All right. If I did this correctly, there's a little cluster of them down here. Here's where they all are. Okay. So at this point, if you've done all this, this is the exercise. You are done. You should save your stuff. You should upload it now. Once you've done that, you can come back. There's a couple little things. So here we have a function called unique, which weirdly it can affect, when I did this the first time, I haven't checked it in a little while, but when I've done it before, it did cause some problems with file saving with uploading to Blackboard. So just try this on your own. Don't include it as part of the assignment in case something goes horribly wrong with it. All right, but what we're going to do down here at the bottom, we'll scroll all the way to the bottom, and in cell J257 here, we're going to produce a list of all the unique cities within the data. Okay, so we can enter the formula equals unique J2 to, oh, I got to edit that. Okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to put it a line below. I see what happened here. So I'm going to put it a line below. I'm going to put it in J258. Okay, so unique J2 to J256. Okay, we're going to get all those and just close out the parentheses. Okay, that's going to give us all the unique cities in that range. And we get this list, right? So we get this as a spillover formula. It goes into a bunch of cells. Now, if we want here over in the next one, K258, right? So I'm just going to edit this in the document right now. J258, 256, K258, 256, J258, and J258. Okay, great. Did that. So what we're going to do over here in K258 is we are going to write this formula. Equals COUNTIF J2 to J256, right? And here equals and J258. Okay. So this is going to include basically this column here as part of it. We're going to count basically take what's in this column and say, hey, in our data up above, how many times was Westland the city? How many times was Jackson the city? And so on. All right. So we're gonna lift these numbers. And this is a neat technique too. Again, you can do the same kind of stuff that you would do in a database grouping count type feature, and you could count how many times something occurred in your data. This is the same thing you can do in Excel. Say, if I have a batch of data, how many times does this particular thing arise in the batch of data? All right. So anyway, that's it. That's a little bonus thing. May be useful for you one day. All right. So that's it. That's the exercise. That's LX9. We'll see you some other time.